Breaking news. Barack Obama described Ibrahim Traore as Africa's rising star during an international conference. When this news reached Traore's office, his initial reaction was shock. But within 48 hours, Burkina Faso's brave leader would deliver such a powerful response that Western media would finally understand that Africa doesn't need to be saved, it needs to be respected. It was a quiet morning in Ouagadougou. As the sun rose over the capital of Burkina Faso, the first workers began walking to their jobs on the red dirt roads. The windows of the presidential palace in the city center were illuminated by the first rays of morning light. President Ibrahim Traore, faithful to his habit of being in his office before dawn, was reviewing reports on local policy progress at his desk. Before him lay stacks of files, documents filled with margin notes, and regional development maps. Unlike an ordinary country leader, Traore took his decisions from direct source data, not from his advisors' summaries. As the ticking of the clock echoed in the room, he gently moved his pen over an economic growth graph in the report. Agricultural production is increasing, but not fast enough, he thought to himself. We need to initiate more well projects to increase water access in the villages. Just as he was completing his notes, he heard his door swing open. His assistant Marie rushed into the room with unusual urgency. Normally always calm and professional, Marie's face now showed a mixture of surprise and excitement. "Mr. President," she said, visibly nervous, "you need to see this right away." Traore put down his pen and noticed the unusual expression on Marie's face. "What happened, Marie? A security issue?" "No, Mr. President," said Marie, extending her tablet. "From America. Barack Obama is talking about you. Live right now." Traore, impressed by the unusual tone of urgency in Marie's voice, fully lifted his head from the report he was reading and took the tablet. On the screen was a live broadcast of a major press conference taking place in the United States. Former U.S. President Barack Obama was on stage, speaking about global leadership and the changes the world needed to face to an audience of hundreds. In today's world, true leadership is not the monopoly of large nations, Obama was saying, under the attentive gaze of the audience in the hall. Sometimes the greatest lessons come from the most unexpected places. But Obama's next sentence completely captured Traore's attention. "Burkina Faso," said Obama, his voice echoing through the packed auditorium, "is a powerful example of how small nations can lead big transformations. Under the leadership of Ibrahim Traore, the country is proving that self-reliance and dignity are not just ideals, but achievable realities." Traore hadn't expected to hear his name coming out of Barack Obama's mouth, much less in such a positive context. For a moment, he felt as if time had stopped. He continued watching the broadcast, trying to process every word being said. "Traore has rejected traditional models of foreign aid," Obama continued, "and is building a future based on mutual respect and trust in the potential of his own people. What the West calls dictatorship is actually a determined step towards self-sufficiency. That is true leadership." At the bottom of the screen, hashtags number African Rising and number Respect Not Aid were visible. The room where Obama was speaking erupted in warm applause, while images of projects led by Traore appeared on screens behind the former American president. Photos of farmers working on reclaimed land, children learning in newly built schools, and young scientists developing technological solutions to local problems were displayed for international audiences. Traore slowly lowered the tablet, still dazed. I didn't expect that," he muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. He placed his hands on the desk, his thoughts in a whirl. Marie smiled, her eyes shining with excitement. "Mr. President, this is incredible. The entire world is seeing the impact of your work. Even Western media is beginning to recognize you." Traore walked to the window and looked at the panorama of the capital. In the distance, a group of children was walking in school uniforms. At a nearby construction site, workers were laying the foundations for a new general hospital. "This isn't just about me, Marie," he said finally, his voice calm but thoughtful. "This is about everyone. The farmers who work, the students who learn, everyone who believes in a future. Obama praises me, but the real achievement belongs to our people who strive every day to build an honorable and independent Burkina Faso." Marie nodded understandingly. During the 2 years she had worked with him, she had seen how Traore always shared success with his people. "What would you like us to do, Mr. President?" she asked. Traore remained silent for a moment, pondering the weight of these words. What kind of opportunity could this type of international recognition create for his country? He knew this was not just about him, but about all the people of Burkina Faso who fought every day to build a better future. "Marie," he said finally, "we need to respond to this, but not with pride or ego, with gratitude and humility. Prepare a press conference for tomorrow. Obama's comments are valuable, but I want to go even further. I want to show how Africa deserves respect, not salvation." "What kind of response are you thinking of?" Marie asked, taking out her phone. Traore's eyes lit up. His mind was already at work. "We will announce a new initiative called Sovereign Future. We will empower local communities across all our regions to develop sustainable solutions to their own problems without outside intervention. As a first step, we will select 5 young farmers from each region and train them in modern, sustainable farming techniques. But the key difference will be this: when these young people return to their villages, they will be required to teach what they've learned to at least 10 other farmers." Marie took rapid notes. "1 trained, 10 trained. A great multiplier effect, Mr. President." "And we won't limit ourselves to agriculture," Traore continued, now pacing the room with excitement. "Health, education, water management. We'll develop our own model to meet all our basic needs. Local solutions built by local hands." Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Obama was concluding his speech with a direct message to Traore. "Ibrahim," he said, looking directly into the cameras, "if you are watching, know that your courage is inspiring many of us. Keep showing the world that Africa does not need to be saved. It needs to be respected. Burkina Faso's journey can be a beacon of hope for the entire continent." Obama's statement quickly went viral on social media, sparking intense debates about sovereignty, self-sufficiency, and Africa's role on the global stage. Hashtags such as Dawn Respect for Africa and Leadership with Dignity began to circulate widely, highlighting the importance of public policies centered on local communities. That evening, at the presidential palace, Traore and his senior team were preparing for the press conference the next day. Ministers and advisors sitting around the table were discussing the details of the Sovereign Future initiative. "Mr. President," said the Minister of Economy with a concerned expression, "I have concerns about the financing of this project. Rejecting foreign aid could be financially challenging." Traore shook his head. "The very idea of foreign aid is already an illusion. For every dollar the West gives us, they make $10 from our underground resources. We will focus on small but effective projects financed with local resources. We will establish a community bank in every province. People will pool their savings here, and these funds will be used for local projects." "What about the media reaction?" asked the Minister of Communication. "Western press might label you as populist or isolationist." This comment was met with approving murmurs from some advisors in the room. Traore thought for a moment, then responded calmly. "Labels don't matter. Facts matter. Calling someone's independence their isolationism is a remnant of the old colonial mindset. We are not disconnected from the world. We just want to participate on equal terms. Even Obama understood this. Tomorrow, we will explain this to the entire world." The meeting continued until late in the night, working on program details, budget, timelines, and communication strategy. Finally, when everyone had left, Traore remained alone in his office. He walked to the window and gazed at the capital in the silence of the night. "Burkina Faso," he whispered, "I will do my best to be worthy of you." The day after Barack Obama's statement, Ibrahim Traore called a press conference at the presidential palace to respond to the global recognition that Burkina Faso had received. The room was packed with local and international journalists, all eager to hear how the leader would react to the former American president's words. Cameras from CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, and many African media organizations were ready. At exactly 10 a.m., The majestic doors of the presidential palace opened, and Ibrahim Traore entered the hall, wearing traditional Burkina Faso clothing, a clear symbol of his connection to the country's cultural roots. His head was held high, his steps calm and determined. Behind him came key members of his new cabinet and various civil society representatives, the head of a farmers' cooperative, a woman education activist, and a young technology entrepreneur. As he approached the podium, the room fell silent. All eyes were fixed on him. He adjusted the microphones and began his speech calmly but firmly. "Yesterday," he said, looking directly at the audience, "Mr. Barack Obama made comments about our country that left me speechless." The room was completely silent, everyone hanging on his words. International reporters were taking rapid notes. "I didn't expect to hear my name coming out of the mouth of someone as respected as him," Traore continued. "But what touched me most was not the praise given to me. It was the recognition of the work of our people." He paused briefly, then continued. "Today I am here to announce an innovative initiative that will expand efforts already underway, the Sovereign Future Program." As journalists took rapid notes, the logo of the program appeared on a screen in the background, a design that combined a traditional African baobab tree with modern digital lines. The aim of this program is to empower local communities to develop sustainable solutions to their own problems without relying on foreign interventions. In the first phase, young farmers, teachers, and health workers will be selected from each region and trained in the latest sustainable development techniques. Those who receive this training will be obligated to share what they've learned with their own communities. Thus, knowledge will spread like the branches of a baobab tree. The Minister of Agriculture, who seemed excited, stepped up to the podium to announce that the program aimed to support 5,000 families in its first year. Training would be provided in drought-resistant seeds, minimal water irrigation systems, and natural fertilizer production. "This program," said Traore, his voice strong and determined, "is not just about politics. It is about proving that we can take care of ourselves. And most importantly, it is about showing the world that Africa does not need to be saved. It needs to be respected." The statement was met with enthusiastic applause by many present, especially local journalists. However, some international correspondents appeared skeptical, questioning the project's viability. "Mr. President," asked a reporter from the French newspaper Le Monde, standing up, "how does Burkina Faso plan to implement these initiatives without external resources? Isn't it too risky to start such a program without the support of international financial institutions?" A silence fell over the room. Many African countries would struggle to answer such questions. Economic development without the support of foreign investors and donors was seen as unthinkable. Traore smiled before responding. Rather than being bothered by an unexpected question, he saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate the strength of his program. "Everything we do involves risk," he said, "but the biggest risk would be accepting help that would compromise our dignity. True independence is not just political, it is also economic." He called the Minister of Finance to the podium, who walked through the hall with a report in hand. "Last year we saw a 15% increase in our golden cotton exports," the minister explained. "But more importantly, our local agricultural production increased by 22%. This means we are spending less money on imports. These resources we have saved will now finance the Sovereign Future Program." Traore returned to the microphone. "We are betting on the potential of our people, and I know they will not disappoint us. This is not a transformation that will happen in a day. This is a long-term transformation that we will build methodically, step by step." The response was a message not just to the reporter, but to the entire world. The response was widely publicized on social media, generating intense debates about sovereignty and sustainable development. Hashtags such as "Your Respect for Africa" and "Your Leadership with Dignity" continued to circulate widely, highlighting the importance of public policies centered on local communities. BBC reporter Samantha Clark wanted more details. "Isn't the complete rejection of foreign aid risky for a country struggling with severe health challenges? Don't you still need international funds for diseases like malaria and HIV?" Traore took a deep breath. This was a dilemma frequently faced by African leaders, honor or the urgent needs of the people? Ms. Clark, he said, we are not rejecting all foreign aid, but there is a big difference between aid and partnership. Aid is a relationship where one side is superior and the other dependent. Partnership is based on mutual respect. We will continue to work with our international partners in the field of health, but we will maintain ownership of our projects. And every day, we will work harder to develop our own solutions. The Minister of Health took the floor and announced the opening of a new center for the research and production of plant-based medicines, an approach that both honored traditional African medicine and strengthened it with modern scientific methods. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Traore's team had already begun working to implement the plan. The Minister of Agriculture organized meetings with community leaders to identify areas most in need, while Marie, the social worker who coordinated the efforts, visited villages to listen to farmers' demands. During a visit Marie made to the Kaya region a few weeks later, about 30 farmers had gathered in the village square. The sun was scorching, but people were patiently waiting to listen. "This is going to change everything," said an elderly farmer during such a meeting, pointing to the soil with his fingers. "Finally, we will have the chance to farm our own land and feed our families. Big agricultural companies will no longer be able to take our land." Marie smiled, moved by people's reactions. She knew that this was more than a political project. It was an opportunity to transform lives. As she was taking notes, she saw a woman approaching with 2 children. "My name is Fatimata," said the woman. "I've been farming alone for 3 years. My husband went to France to work, but we never heard from him. This program, will it really help women like me too?" Marie held the woman's hand. "Especially for women like you, Fatimata." President Traore insisted that at least half of the program focus on women farmers. "We will provide you with modern seeds, training, and a small credit for your first harvest." Fatimata's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I will work hard to give my children a better future." Meanwhile, Barack Obama's statement about Ibrahim Traore quickly gained international repercussions. His message of respect and recognition of Burkina Faso's self-sufficiency resonated with global leaders, social movements, and even ordinary citizens. The image of an African country leading its own transformation without relying on foreign aid inspired debate about how other nations could follow suit. In the United States, reaction to Obama's speech was mixed. While some supporters of the former president praised his words as a way to highlight positive examples of global leadership, others criticized the idea that African countries could prosper without foreign intervention. A leading columnist at the Washington Post wrote, "Does Obama's praise of Traore signal a serious change in American foreign policy's approach to Africa, or is it just a diplomatic gesture?" During a live interview on CNN, a political analyst who specialized in African policies expressed his admiration for the Burkina Faso president. "Traore is showing something that many of us have forgotten," said the analyst. "That leadership is not about imposing solutions, but about empowering people to find their own. Western countries have imposed their own development models on Africa for decades, but the results have often been disappointing. Perhaps it's time to listen." Meanwhile, in Africa, Traore's stance was widely celebrated. Leaders from other countries began to adopt similar initiatives, adapting them to their local realities. In Nigeria, for example, a group of young people launched a campaign called Value Your People, raising funds to help rural communities develop sustainable projects. Speaking at a technology center in Lagos, Nigeria, young entrepreneur Oluwaseun Adebayo said, "Traore has inspired us. Africa's solutions must come from Africa. We young people no longer want to be passive recipients of aid. We want to build our own future." Back in Burkina Faso, Traore continued to receive reports on the progress of the Sovereign Future program. 2 months later, he met a woman named Fatou in a small rural village who had benefited from the initiative. A mother of 3, Fatou was teaching carpentry to other women in the area, part of the program's vocational training component. "Before, I could barely feed my children," she said during an interview with a local broadcaster working in her workshop. "Now I'm helping other women build a better future. I make furniture and teach this skill to other women. It's all thanks to President Traore." The scene was widely publicized on social media, further reinforcing Traore's image as a visionary leader. In the video, Fatu's 10-year-old son was showing a table his mother had just made and proudly saying, "My mom made this." These images were powerful proof of the program's practical results. Hashtags such as "Respect for Africa" and "Leadership with Dignity" continued to circulate widely, highlighting the importance of public policies centered on local communities. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Traore's team was hard at work expanding the program. The Minister of Agriculture organized partnerships with local universities to provide technical training to farmers, while Marie coordinated efforts to ensure that families had access to basic resources such as water and electricity. 6 months after the program's launch, an evaluation meeting was held at the presidential palace. Traore sat at the head of the table, surrounded by his cabinet and key implementers of the program. The reports were promising. All 5,000 families initially identified had been reached. Local agricultural production had seen an 18% increase, and investments in the newly opened community banks were exceeding expectations. "We're just getting started," Traore said during this meeting with his team, looking at the ancient African maps adorning the walls. "But we can already see the first signs of change, and this change is not just economic, it is social, cultural, and above all human." The Minister of Agriculture, glancing at reports on his tablet, took the floor. "Mr. President, perhaps the most striking aspect of the program is the light of hope in our people's eyes. I now see more young people in the villages. They used to all want to go to the cities or abroad. Now they see a future on their own land," Marie agreed. "And it's not just men. Women are at the center of this program. Stories like Fatu's are multiplying. Women who start their own businesses, support their families, contribute to their communities." Traore nodded slightly, pleased with what he was hearing. "And what about international relations? What has changed since Obama's comments?" The foreign minister stepped forward. "An interesting situation, Mr. President. On one hand, Western diplomats now speak to us with more respect. On the other hand, some former colonial powers seem uncomfortable. France is particularly concerned. They fear that their other former colonies in the region will follow similar paths." "Let them fear," said Traore, in a calm but determined voice. "The past is theirs. The future is ours." At the end of the meeting, Traore looked out the window. The sun was setting, casting a golden light over the capital. "What will be the next phase?" he asked, more to himself than to anyone else. "Mr. President, if I may," began the Minister of Education, with his usual hesitant manner. "It's time to expand the program to the education sector. Sovereign future should not be limited to agriculture. We need to develop our own curriculum, our own educational model." Traore's eyes lit up. This was an idea he had been thinking about himself, but he was happy to hear it from a minister's mouth. "Go on!" "We need to move away from the colonial education system," the minister explained. "Our children still learn more about European history than African history. We teach science and technology, but hardly mention African science. We need to change this situation." The defense minister leaned forward at the table. "And security is equally important. We expelled the French soldiers from the country, but now we need to build our own capacity. Sovereign future could also have a security dimension. Locally made equipment, locally trained personnel, and most importantly, our own intelligence network." As Traore listened to these ideas, he realized how Obama's speech had unexpectedly transformed into a national transformation movement. Sometimes all a nation needed was for someone to believe in it, just to start believing in themselves. "Let's combine all these ideas in the Sovereign Future 2.0 program," said Traore. "I want to see a detailed plan within a week. And remember this, the goal is not to completely reject the outside, but to interact on our own terms." In the United States, Obama was watching the live broadcast with growing admiration. A week after Traore's announcement, while speaking at a university conference, he was again asked about Traore. "This guy is something special," Obama admitted, surprising the audience. "He is proving that genuine leadership involves listening to your people and acting with humility. Burkina Faso may be a small country, but sometimes the greatest lessons come from the most unexpected places. Obama's new statement was widely publicized. It further reinforced the message that gestures of kindness and genuine leadership can unite people from different parts of the world. This time, however, the speech had deeper political implications. Policymakers in Washington began to reassess the U.S. approach to Africa. Perhaps it was time for true partnership instead of the aid model. In Burkina Faso, Traore continued his mission of transformation. During a visit to a small rural village for the opening of a new school, he met a child named Mamadou. Mamadou was one of the children who had received school uniforms and supplies thanks to resources generated by land reform. Thin but strong, his eyes were full of curiosity and intelligence. "Mr. President," said Mamadou, his voice trembling with excitement. He was holding a carefully prepared notebook. "This is for you. I wanted to show you that we are using what we have been given to learn." Traore took the notebook and turned its pages. Inside were Mamadou's calligraphy, math solutions, and drawings of small scientific experiments. On the last page was a picture of a future version of Burkina Faso, a vision filled with solar panels, green fields, and happy people. Traore smiled, deeply touched. "You don't owe us anything, Madou. You're proving that when we give people the right tools, they can conquer the world." The school principal approached. "Mamadou is our brightest student, Mr. President. He wants to be a scientist someday." "And what about you, Mamadou?" Traore asked the child directly. "What do you really want to be?" The child thought for a moment, then overcame his shyness to answer, "I want to be like you, Mr. President. I want to help our country stand on its own feet." Traore placed his hand on Mamadou's shoulder. "Perhaps one day you will take my place, young man, and I'm sure you'll be much better than me." A few weeks after the school visit, a grand ceremony was held in the capital of Burkina Faso. Called Sovereign Future Day, this special day celebrated the first 6 months of the program. In the large square in the city center, thousands of people had gathered. In a festival atmosphere full of colorful clothing, traditional music, dance, and food, people were celebrating not just a program, but a vision. As Traore took the podium to greet the crowd, his eyes shone with pride and gratitude. "My dear citizens," he began, his voice echoing from speakers filling the square. "Today, we are not just celebrating a program. We are celebrating the awakening of a nation. A few months ago, a former American president introduced us to the world. But those who truly introduced us are you who have brought this program to life. Our farmers, our teachers, our young entrepreneurs, our mothers and fathers." The crowd applauded enthusiastically. At one side of the square, Marie stood with families benefiting from the program. Fatou was there, along with other women she had trained in her carpentry workshop. Mamadou and his school friends sat in front, proudly wearing their new uniforms. "Our path is long," Traore continued. "There are challenges ahead of us, but now we know that we can determine our own destiny. Africa doesn't need to be saved. Africa needs to be respected. And we will earn that respect with our own hands, our own dreams, our own efforts." His words were more than a commitment. They were a loud expression of a nation's soul. Obama's simple gesture had ignited a spark, and now that spark had become a light, not just in Burkina Faso, but across the entire continent. The celebrations in the square continued until late in the night. People were dancing, singing, and sharing their hopes for the future. And at the center of it all stood Traore, a leader, a visionary, but above all, one of the people. Observing the scene, a journalist wrote in his notebook, "Today in Burkina Faso, I saw the future of an Africa that values its history, honors its heroes, and builds bridges of dignity for all. And perhaps this future was born from a small gesture of recognition from an unexpected place and the courage to respond to it."